Hey everybody, KC here. So, I don't often get requests, but this one I kind of liked, and so I wanted to really pay attention to it. So it said, Kevin, wondering if in an upcoming edition of Morning Newsbeat, you could give us your thoughts and perceived business lessons on the NFL's decision to only stream the Chiefs-Dolphins playoff game. I have to imagine many feathers have been ruffled by that choice. So, for those of you who may not be aware, the Kansas City Chiefs Miami Dolphins game on last weekend was not available on the typical broadcast TV networks, right? It was streamed on Peacock, which is the first time a game like that has ever been only streamed on one of these services. It was, however, also available in other places. You could see it on the local NBC affiliate in South Florida and in Kansas City, and it was also available on the NFL Plus app. So it was available in other places, but basically you had to pay for it. Now, while feathers were ruffled among NFL fans all over the country who don't have Peacock or the NFL Plus app, there isn't much question that it was basically a very successful test on the part of NBC, which owns Peacock. There were something like 23 million viewers who tuned into the game on Peacock, which is a record for Peacock. The NBC says that makes it the most streamed live TV event ever. And basically, in terms of the internet, well, 30% of internet traffic was basically dedicated to people watching the Kansas City Chiefs and Miami Dolphins game online. Okay, so people found a way to watch the game. Now, let's be clear. Peacock paid $110 million for the streaming rights to the game and the right not to put it any place else other than the other places that I just mentioned. And their bet is very clear. They believe that by doing so, they can get people to watch other programs, to subscribe to Peacock and watch other programs, things like Poker Face or Mr. Monk's Last Case, Dr. Death, as well as older series like Friday Night Lights and Columbo. They also have a lot of crap on Peacock, to be clear. They have something there, I really had to double check this. It's called Couple to Thruple, in which, and I quote, 4 couples at a tropical resort explore polyamory. I am not making any of this up. Business lessons? Well, listen, I think the fact is that the broadcast networks, as we traditionally think of them, they're not long for this world. In a lot of ways, they find themselves in exactly the same position as paper, newspapers, and the U.S. mail. Yeah, they have a function right now, but we can see the writing on the wall. People are finding other ways to get content. And just as they're finding other ways to communicate messages, they don't need letters, and they're finding basic other ways to get their news. So I think the writing is on the wall. We know that Major League Baseball games are already on Amazon and Apple. Amazon has Thursday Night Football. They paid $11 billion for an 11-year deal. So they've clearly made a commitment. And it's really not hard to imagine other players getting into the game. I mean, Netflix carrying the Masters tournament, or Apple or Amazon carrying the World Series, or YouTube carrying the U.S. Tennis Open, or Disney gradually moving all of its ESPN content over to Disney+. That just seems to be the direction in which things are going. And by the way, the streaming business, to be clear, is hardly without its problems, which is why you're starting to see a lot of bundling go on. But they still believe in that way of disseminating content. They just have to find economic ways to make it work out. One of the ways you do that is by having proprietary content that nobody else has. Sports are a perfect example of that. Listen, yeah, feathers are ruffled, but I think it was probably a pretty good place to test it out. It was a big game, but it was unlikely to generate sort of the Heidi game controversy of 50 years ago. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to the Heidi game, just Google it. It's really, really fascinating how things were done in 1968. I think they learned that they can get an audience. That seems pretty clear. Now, we don't know. Will this translate into higher subscription numbers for Peacock? And, couple the thruple. That remains to be seen. I think it's a pretty good bet that if it does, NBC is going to make a lot of noise about it. If it doesn't, not so much. And while I would agree that it doesn't make sense to annoy your audience, I do think there's something about exploring the future and not just always doing things the way they've been done. How many people who are real NFL fans are going to stop being NFL fans because things start moving over to streaming? I just don't think that's going to happen. The only way that the NFL is going to stop making these kinds of deals if they find they lose fans and advertisers. And they've got to lose a lot of fans and advertisers because the streaming services are writing really big checks. And it's all about the money. It's making money, having proprietary content. So they're going to keep doing this as both because it benefits both sides at this point. Hey, listen, proprietary content is their version of private label. Private label can be incredibly powerful in terms of differentiating your business. I did think there was one really interesting online comment that I saw. Somebody wrote, hey, listen, if I'm paying for the streaming service, how come I have to watch commercials? But in some ways, the question answers itself. It's all about the money. It's all about the checks. It's not about the customer. Now, listen, that can be a dangerous long-term proposition. If you're paying more attention to the money and you're not making your customer the priority, that's a dangerous place to be. The NFL is arrogant, and they have some good reason to be arrogant, but I think they have to be careful of it. However, putting your customers secondary, that's not a position I would recommend to anybody else. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this morning. And as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.